And looking back and seeing all of these requests for interviews, requests for this, requests for that, I was Mr. Popularity. I don't want to be popular for that. It's not something I want next to my name every time you look me up somewhere. Oh, yeah, he's the guy that owns a bowling alley that 8 people lost their lives in a night of tragedy in Lewiston, Maine, where 18 people lost their lives. Not the best way to be put in the spotlight.
Welcome to Seacoast Stories, a podcast about the people, businesses, and newsmakers that make the Seacoast an American hidden gem. I'm Trey Farkas, and on today's episode, a bowling alley's recovery from an unfathomable tragedy that happened in Lewiston, Maine, 1 year ago this week. Today's story starts on the only day that it can. October 25th, 2023. I won't give you the full breakdown of what happened because I'm sure you haven't forgotten it. None of us have. As you just heard, 18 people lost their lives that night. 8 at Justin Time Recreation and 10 at Shemangi's Bar and Grill in a mass casualty event that was the largest in the United States last year. 13 people were also injured. This podcast is not about the individual who did this, the ongoing investigations into the systemic failures that could have prevented it, nor is it about gun control or the mental health crisis in America. It's about how Lewiston has come together in the past year and how this small town in Maine has persevered in the wake of a tragedy that no community should ever have to deal with. At the forefront of this movement is Justin Juray, the co-owner of Justin Time Recreation in Lewiston. After closing for 6 months, he and his wife Samantha reopened the alley in May. They could have closed for good, but they knew that to truly honor the 18 lives lost, they had to keep going. They had to fight. Because, as Justin will tell you, that's what Mainers do. Last Monday, I drove to Lewiston to speak to Justin. I'll tell you more about my experience later in the show, but for now I'll say that this conversation opened my perspective in the most unexpected of ways. I went there also because I'm just a sucker for a bowling alley. I have fond memories of midnight bowling and first dates at my alley back home, just like Justin. In fact, he grew up going to this exact alley, formerly known as Spare Time. He spent many youthful Friday nights falling asleep on the chairs while his dad and brother bowled their hearts out. But eventually, after years of playing casually, Justin finally decided to get serious about it. And that's where today's episode begins.
I came here and they were doing a special. It was like $5 for 4 hours of bowling, and I found a ball on the rack that was a normal house ball. It was what they call a fingertip ball, and I started throwing it, and I kind of got it. It kind of made sense, and from there, I ended up getting my own ball drilled, and some people I joined a league with some of my friends and my dad, and from there, it took off. I actually really started to enjoy it, and I got better and met some really good people here that kind of showed me the ropes and showed me different, how extensive the game is and how deep you can get into it, like everything else. Any other hobby, if you put time into it, you can see, it's not just coming in, grabbing a pair of shoes from behind the counter and throwing one of the house balls. There's a lot to it.
So how much spare time were you spending at Spare Time?
It started slow. I got up to 3 or 4 leagues a week. Before we owned it, I think I was in 3 leagues a week, which is, that's a lot.
And what kind of scores are we talking about here?
I was about a 180, 190 average. Still am. Actually, I think I've gotten worse a little bit, but that's the old age.
That's not how it's supposed to work. Bowling score is supposed to get better. Age like a fine wine.
Everybody says you own a bowling center. How come you're not perfect at it? But there's no time.
So what was your career path when you were just playing in these bowling leagues for fun?
Well, I was a floor installer for many years, and then I kind of got into just contract work as a whole. And then I started running my own contract business, doing installations and from everything from siding to flooring, windows, doors, things like that.
And did you enjoy that work?
For a little while. It gets stressful, especially when you're dealing with subcontractors.
Yeah.
That was tough.
And so during some of those tougher moments, did you find yourself dreaming about opening up your own business one day in a completely different field?
Well, I always had the thought of, once I kind of got the taste of not punching a clock and not working for somebody else and working for myself, I kind of knew this is what I wanted to do, but I wasn't quite sure which avenue to go. And so I kind of went from contract work to back to punching a clock and then back to contract work again. And then I ended up owning the business. And once I owned the business, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do something. I don't want to go and work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. And I was still doing that. Even after I bought this place, I had both businesses going for a little while. And this one kind of consumed everything and took all the time. And I really enjoyed it. It was a different type of business.
So when Spare Time came available for sale in 2021, why did you and your wife, Samantha, want to purchase it?
She was bowling with me. We were both enjoying bowling, and we had gotten to know quite a few people around the area and in the bowling community. And nobody wanted, previous owner had tried for a while to sell it. And I went home and said, he handed out a flyer, said, we're closing. This is our last day, and brought it home and said, you interested? And she kind of gave me that, sure, look. And we kind of pursued it a little further and got a really good deal. The landlords worked with us to renovate and change it and make it our own. And, we both saw the things that we didn't like as customers here. And we're both from a customer service background. I mean, it's kind of what we've done all our lives, including the installation end of things. It's always been customer based and customer service based. So we felt that we could do it. We felt that we could make this something that it could be and should be.
And why were you so personally interested in keeping this place in business?
Because I like bowling. And I spent a lot of time recently to that point but I brought my kids here. My dad brought us here when we were kids. So there's just a lot of history here and community. And there's not a lot to do in this area when it comes to community recreational activities, especially for people under the age of 21, other than going to a bar, So
when you and your wife purchased this place and we're going to rebrand it, take me inside that process, because I understand it was a pretty quick turnaround time, right? That you opened just in time to hit your deadline. So what were the biggest challenges that you faced in opening this place in 2021?
We wanted to change the look of things, a lot of the painting, but finances were not at a premium at that point for us. So a lot of the stuff we had to do on our own. And it was a totally different business for us. We never really had a brick and mortar type business. Most of the stuff we did was either online or, and going to people's houses to help remodel their homes, So this was totally different, having staff and employees and learning all the laws and all of that. So we thankfully had a lot of help from family, friends, and we changed what we could. Just enough to make it so that we could open the doors and start the business and see how it went. And it was going well. And we were slowly making changes, and we have been, and we still are.
I'm just curious because I'm fascinated when a husband and wife go into business together and what that does to the relationship. So prior to the night that changed everything, which is a whole different set of circumstances, how was the business strengthening your relationship? Was it challenging it in different ways just prior to 23?
Samantha and I met at work. Like I said, when I had kind of left the contract world, I'd gone back to work for Lowe's, and she had worked there, and I met her at Lowe's and we worked together there. And then I was still doing kind of some of the contract work. And then I took over that business with a partner, and she left Lowe's to come work for me in that business. So really, we've just found a way to work together our whole relationship, and we do it well. We can turn it off when it comes to business and keep the relationship stuff outside.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. I imagine a lot of married couples who do go into business together struggle. What would be your biggest pieces of advice to couples who go into business together?
Leave it at the door. Leave it at the door. Business is business. Personal is personal. You have to be able to, especially when it comes to customer service. Customers don't want to see us arguing about our personal lives or anything like that. And some customers wouldn't even know that we were married. You couldn't tell based on our interactions at work, except that we work well together. You know, she could be calling me every name in the book when we're at home walking or on the ride to work. But as soon as we walked through that door, you couldn't even tell that we were arguing. It's pretty amazing.
And I imagine that support system has been the backbone of everything that's happened in the last year. We don't need to get into what happened a year ago. I mentioned it at the top of the episode. It's well documented. I want to talk about since October 25th, 2023. When you woke up on the 26th of October last year, what were you thinking?
I didn't sleep on the 25th, so I didn't wake up. I was already awake. I don't really remember. I was in shock. I was in pain. I was angry. I was sad. All these emotions. I was in a cloud. I didn't know whether I was coming or going, to be honest. I didn't know if I could even believe that it was real and that it happened. And that went on for, I'd say, a good 4 to 6 months. It was all consuming. It was unbelievable. And so many different emotions, so many different feelings, so many different things, that your brain I didn't sleep for days and maybe an hour, maybe 20 minutes, waking up with night terrors, night sweats. It was awful.
What in the ensuing days was the feeling around this area, this Lewiston, Auburn area that you've...
For the couple of days, it was fear because nobody knew where this guy was. So we were on lockdown. I imagine utter shock and just total unbelief. It's a lot of pain, a lot of people lost, a lot of families devastated, whether directly affected or indirectly. But this community pulled through, and we're still pulling through. We're still doing it. We're still walking through this terrible tragedy that will affect all of us for the rest of our lives.
This story obviously gained national, international attention. What was it like to see Lewiston, this place that you've lived in your entire life, built such a strong sense of community around and love for? What was it like to see Lewiston catapulted onto the national stage for these reasons?
It was gross. It was gross. It still upsets me. I love the fact that we did get, noticed for the community that came together and pulled through, but it's so happens so often, and it's the wrong reason. It's not something that anybody should be proud of. Any person, any human should be proud to be on a list as the top city is mass shooting or whatever the title is. I watched Stephen Colbert. I think it was the following night. Oh, and the new speaker, we had just put somebody else into that position, and he said, America's in a dark time, something like this. But I'll just leave it at that. And Colbert said the thing that made the most sense to me. Who can't leave it there? The people of Lewiston. The people of Lewiston can't just leave it at that. They have to fight and struggle and deal with this every day, and they have to rebuild, and they will, because Mainers are tough, and we have, and we are. But that's the sentiment that we get all over the place when these things happen. It's big news. You're important. We had people showing up at our home to come interview us. I thought that was like unrealistic. I didn't think that those kind of things happened, and never in my life. To me, I'm not that significant. I'm not that important. But people from all over the world, not just Maine, not just America, all over the world, showing up to ask and talk about this event. And then once it blows over and it's not news anymore, they disappear. Just like everybody else. They just disappear. Thankfully, it's not everybody. We've had a lot of support and a lot of people that stick around and have helped us, because we couldn't have done this on our own. There's no way. There's no way. Too many people to name, but it happens all the time. People just forget about it and move on and don't realize that this never goes away for us. This is something that I think about every day, every single day. I mean, just this morning, I was going through all my emails and trying to categorize I had so many, and it's just been, a lot to keep up with. And I got to October 26th, and as I was going through them, I just broke down. And I mean, literally just this morning, this happened. It was, seeing, because some of them I hadn't even responded to, because in those days, I wasn't responding to anything. And looking back and seeing all of these requests for interviews, requests for this, requests for that. But these same people, if I reached out, they probably wouldn't even know who I was. But at that moment, I was Mr. Popularity. I don't want to be popular for that. It's not something I want next to my name every time you look me up somewhere. Oh, yeah, he's the guy that owns a bowling alley that 8 people lost their lives in a night of tragedy in Lewiston, Maine, where 18 people lost their lives tragically and not innocently. It's just, so, yeah, not the best way to be put in the spotlight, for sure.
And as the proud owner of this bowling alley that has meant so much to you, your entire life has had so many meanings to you in different phases of your life, to have this label attached to it by anyone outside of Lewiston who's not familiar with the area, what does that make you feel like?
I don't think about it. It's what it is. There's not much I can do about it. I can't change what happened. But what we can do is we can grow and move forward and show that doesn't define us. Our youth league is the biggest in the state. That's amazing to me. 50 plus kids on a weekly, every Saturday come here and get together with their friends and their coaches and want to play this game and learn this game and be better at this game. It's awesome. That's important. The leagues have come back and most of them have grown. It just shows me that we made the right decision and we're moving forward. Nobody in this community will ever forget what happened, but it doesn't define us. It's not the final say.
Let's talk about the decision to move forward. In other places where these big mass casualty events have happened at certain establishments, they've closed down doors. They've decided just to completely bury that hatchet. You decided to reopen this place 6 months after the event happened. Why did you decide to do that?
Mainly because of Bob Violet, one of the coach that we lost. Initially, I didn't think I could step foot back in here again. I didn't find it seemed impossible. And during those days, between having to go pick up all our stuff at the armory, which all those little things that nobody really knows or sees, you hear about these events and you don't think about the fact that every person in here either they had to leave their car here, their phones here, their personal belongings. Almost everybody that ran out of here scared, fearing for their lives, were wearing bowling shoes. They weren't even wearing their own shoes. They weren't, all of that stuff was left behind, which seems very insignificant, but life moves on, things move forward. And people left their keys here. They couldn't get into their homes. I had one guy that was staying, a good friend of mine that was staying at my house for days because we couldn't get our stuff. He didn't have a phone. Most people don't remember phone numbers, so it's programmed, we take it for granted that it's right there. He walks around with an Apple Watch now. He never hated watches, but he walks around with an Apple Watch now because that feeling of being helpless. He had nowhere to go. Couldn't get into his home, couldn't make any phone calls, didn't have any access to anything. So in those days, like, you never really think about that stuff when you hear about these events happening in other places until you experience it. And in those days, between going back and forth to the armory to pick up our car keys or whatever, my dad went. I couldn't go. I stayed home. I didn't really want to go anywhere or do anything, but my dad went with Samantha, and he came back and he said, Just, I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. I had 4 people I didn't even know. When's your son opening the bowling center? When are you reopening? When are you guys reopening? So that kind of was like a little like, wow, people, because initially I felt responsible. I couldn't keep people safe. I invited these people in here. How could I invite people back when I can't assure safety? So that was the start of the thought process. And whether it was a dream, daydream, lapse in whatever, Bob clearly as day said, Justin, you have to reopen. You have to reopen for this community. I've dedicated my time and my life to this sport and to these kids, and this has to happen. It's not a choice. You have to reopen. And that was the kick in the butt that said, okay, let's do this. And the first time back took probably 20 or 30 minutes for me to just get through the parking lot to the front foyer, to the front doors and in. It was very emotional. And, and once I felt that feeling, we made it a point that anybody, which is why we did everything that we did when we did reopen, from starting with the first responders and the victims and their families and the people that were here with no public, nobody else. Gave them their opportunity, gave all the leagues an opportunity to come in and see and just get through that emotional feeling. And with the support of the Maine Resiliency Center and all of the community, made it possible. And there's still some people that can't do it. And that's understandable, because that feeling that I felt and that time that it took for me to walk through those doors, I realized that this is something we have to give people, that option and that ability to handle it on their own without fear of somebody else, what they're going to say, what it's going to look like. Because not everybody understands. Not everybody understands what it was like to be that kind of fear, that kind of, or to lose somebody in that kind of way right next to you. That's traumatic in its own right. And then to turn around and walk back in. So we wanted to make it as easy and sensitive and as perfectly possible for people to be able to do that in their own way and their own timing. And it started even when we started doing the construction. People would reach out and, yes, and we'll walk with you. If you want time on your own, you want us to be here with you, you want just whatever, however you want to do it, we gave that option because it had to happen. I felt those feelings, and it's a lot. It's a lot.
You said that it took you 20 to 30 minutes to walk through the doors for the first time again. When you were trying to muster up the courage to enter, what was going through your mind? I don't remember. I was shaking. I'm starting to get that feeling right now just thinking about it. And I really haven't given it much thought. I know the first night, the first time, we were on the other side where I had escaped, where I'd run out the door, and I had seen the tree where my father was laying, and I had gone and laid with him. And
that in itself, which is the other side of the building, opposite of the entrance, that in itself was, I broke down, and my wife was with me, and she said, "Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe let's take a break. Maybe we're not ready. Maybe it's And I said, "Nope, let me just deal with this." And then to come around the parking lot and pulling into the parking lot was a whole nother emotional thing. And then to get up to the foyer, so what the thoughts were so random, and so thinking about this person, thinking about all of these things, thinking about what had just happened days, week, whatever prior. But specifically, I couldn't answer that.
As you and your wife thought about the reopening process and what you wanted this place to look like, I'm curious how you weighed honoring the lives of those who were lost, memorializing what happened, but also moving forward and starting anew.
Mm-hmm. We knew we had to do something, and of course, we got a lot of different opinions and thoughts, and the masking units above the lanes, I think, represents Lewiston and the community and it was all donated time and the materials and everything and the work. But they're pictures of Lewiston and what this community is. The pins that we had made, we were just here, it was kind of during the remodeling steps, and some random person just showed up at the door, and we were all nervous after everything that we've been through, just having random people show up that we didn't know. And they said, this is what they wanted to do for us. And we said, okay. And they're beautiful. They honor every single life lost, not just here, but at Schmenge's as well. And then we have the table that was made by my father-in-law that also shows and it's because we'll never forget, but at the same time, it's not right in your face, so that every day people that come here have to relive those moments, because that's not what we want. We don't want people to have to relive that night. We want to honor the people that love this place as much as they did and spent so much time here, as well as moving forward.
No business book, no leadership podcast can prepare you for what you've had to deal with the last year. I'm curious, as a leader of people, of your staff here, how did you have to, because I'm sure they're all going through their own things as well. People who were there that night, people who worked here were lost that night as well. I'm wondering how you convince them to come back and to feel safe
I did
here.
not convince anybody or try to convince anybody. I offered and told them that they always had a spot, but it's totally up to them, customers and staff alike. It's not something that you can force on anybody. Everybody, whether you were here or not, it affected people differently. And that was the one thing that I learned, especially in my marriage. Samantha and I were both here that night. We both deal with it differently. We both handle it differently. She came in almost immediately. But Samantha's a caretaker. Samantha was able to come in here and see the glasses and cups still sitting where they were. Samantha, I couldn't have done the things that my wife did. I'm not strong enough. She tells me to turn my head when there's something on Grey's Anatomy that is a little too much, I couldn't have done what she did. She's so strong, but I notice times when she can't handle it. And we both are seeing professional help. We both realized that we couldn't do it on our own. And I recommend to anybody that is struggling with these mental health issues, because that's definitely part of the reason why we are where we are is the mental health. And I couldn't have done it. I mean, there was at one point where I was feeling like I don't know how I'll ever be able to function normally. I mean, I couldn't hold conversations. I couldn't think straight. I just could not. I didn't see any normal life after this. And with help and time, obviously, I can get through days and I can smile and not feel guilty about smiling and laughing and having a good time and enjoying the family that we have come to know and love. We were seeing these people on sometimes more than our own family, and to an abrupt not seeing at all. And the numerous people that reached out, hey, you want to come go have lunch? Hey, I miss you. We haven't seen each other. Those are all impacted the decision to reopen, to do something against the odds and against what so many businesses have not been able to do.
And when you reopened in May of this year, what was the reception?
Amazing. It was awesome. The city put together such a great event. The place was packed wall to wall. There were tears, but smiles and joy and just so much community support. It was awesome. It was awesome. Volunteers, people just helping, because I had a full staff here and we couldn't keep up. It was awesome. It was great. We had worked with Lost Valley and created 18 Angels. They made the beer and we came up with the name and came up with the and we were offering proceeds and we sold through, I think, 2 kegs in a day. People came and wanted to buy that beer specifically. That was just amazing.
You don't need to divulge numbers and such, but is business better today than it was in September of 2023?
Honestly, not really. But it was to be expected. The leagues, like I said, have grown and they're keeping us going. The youth league has definitely grown. Those numbers are there. But it was summertime and we had a beautiful summer. It rained 4 times all summer?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
It was gorgeous. So I can't complain about the weather, but at the same time I can complain about the weather. It doesn't help a bowling center when it's 75, 80 degrees and sunny out 90% of the year, So, but we've already noticed a turn with now that the fairs are all done and the weather's starting to change a little bit. And so I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I know it's not the community bailing on us. I didn't always want to be in here. I like golf, like I said, so I was out on the golf course my fair share. But I do, we have a lot of parties booked, a lot of corporate events booked, which this is our busy season. And I think if you ask me this question after this winter, I'll say yes. Yes, the numbers have increased.
I think that'll be the case. In the wake of what happened last year, you saw the Lewiston Strong being posted on social media everywhere, shirts. I saw the Boston Celtics wearing jerseys that said that. What does Lewiston Strong mean to you, Justin?
Community. We went through something that unfortunately this country sees way too often. But it showed me that we are Mainers and we are strong and we are community based and no matter what your background is, we all came together because tragedy struck all of us. Every single person in this community was affected in one way or another. And I couldn't feel more of the love and support that we felt in the past year. And my son and I played in the benefit tournament this past weekend that they had done. This is the second, obviously. And it was awesome to see the food trucks that are donating some of their proceeds to the benefit, and all the teams, close to 50 teams that participated in this tournament, and all for this community, all to support the victims and their families after such a horrific event.
So we're about 365 days removed from what happened, and you mentioned your mental health, the obvious struggles that you've had since then. How would you assess it today on the day that we're speaking?
Better. Moving forward, I'm sleeping. I have a great therapist that I love. She gives me the ability. I feel comfortable. I have a connection and the ability to talk about what I'm feeling and what I'm going through, and gives me some skills to help me in those moments when it is dark. Because there's, like I said just this morning, it was a dark moment, but I was able to work through it and have this interview with you and have a meeting with my staff, because life does go on and things move forward. And if I was just to throw in the towel, we wouldn't have this bowling center. We wouldn't have, my wife wouldn't have a husband or a support system. My kids wouldn't have a father. And that wouldn't be fair. Sorry. That wouldn't be fair. That's just more that would be taken. And it doesn't mean I don't miss every single person I don't think about or care. It just means that they wouldn't want us to sit and throw in the towel and just give up. I know that. I know they're here with us. I say good morning to them every morning. I say good night when we leave. It's if I didn't feel that it was, I feel them. I talk to them. And sometimes I think they answer back with the little noises and things I hear around here.
You mentioned earlier that you felt responsible for what happened that night in the
It was brief.
In the immediate aftermath. What do you feel today in regards to that?
That this gentleman was failed. I don't hold him responsible. I mean, I don't condone what he did and think it was the right decision, but he clearly screamed for help. And I think a lot of people get ignored. And I think we have work to do as a country in many aspects to protect our citizens, to protect these innocent lives from his family was affected. Of course they were affected. He had children. He was a mother, a father, a brother. His family, they didn't just get through this. They have to deal with this as well. And that's not fair. That's not what he did was right by any stretch of the imagination. But we're better. We're better than this. We're across the board. And it happens, like I said, this way too often. There's got to be some sort. I don't know the answer. I wish I did. I wish I had the answer. But there's got to be something that can be done to slow the pace.
No one in Lewiston would fault you if you had nothing but hate and anger toward the shooter and what happened. How have you found it within yourself to express that kind of compassion and empathy that you just said?
Because what got us, what causes this? Hate, anger. It makes no sense. It just doesn't. I just don't believe that hate is ever the right answer. So we have a sign sitting out front that says "Love always wins." I mean, it's just how I was raised. It's how my wife was raised, which is why I love her so much. I'm angry at the event. I'm angry at the loss, but to point a finger and say this one thing is the cause of this, then it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. That's just how I think of things.
That's an incredible outlook. We said at the beginning of the episode, we talked about you and your wife and how you guys work really well together. I'm wondering, in the past year, how has your working relationship been?
Good. It took therapy and counseling and understanding that we are both going to handle things differently. We're going to process differently. We're going to, like I said, my wife is a caretaker. So she spent all of her time worried about me and worried about the people that were here, worried about my son and is everybody okay? And everywhere we went, we went out to a bar near our house a few months after, and she was clearing tables and she wasn't working. We were just there, but that's Samantha. Whereas I kind of closed up and started drinking more than I needed. And I actually started smoking cigarettes, which I had quit for 2 years. And, I was kind of secluding myself and I wasn't enjoying life and I didn't want to do anything. As of recently, I quit drinking, going on a month, I think, quit
Congrats.
Smoking cigarettes, cold turkey. And with the mental health, I'm processing better. I was pushing myself away from everything and everybody and not dealing with what I needed to deal with. And same with Samantha. She was handling things by taking care of everybody, but now she's turning inward and taking care of herself, which has helped both of us to work well together and understand and give each other that space when we need it. Okay, you're having a moment and it's okay and you're allowed, but I'm gonna let me know when you need me.
Knowing what you know now, if you could send a message, if today Justin could send a message to October 26, 2023 Justin, what would you say to him?
There is a future. This isn't the rest of your life, because there was one moment that it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks after that I pulled over. I was driving down the road and I had to pull over. And I was angry. I was so angry. And I thought to myself, and it was a conversation I couldn't have with my wife because I didn't want to put that on her. But I was thought to myself, I understand why people turn to drugs, alcohol, or suicide, because it literally was consuming every single second of my life that I thought there's no escape. I could fly halfway around the world and it's still there. I can't just run away from this. I can't get away from this. I can't stop this. I can't end it other than hide it, mask it, or end it. And I would definitely tell myself that that's not the case. There's people that depend on you. There's people that care about you. There's people that are there to help you, and there's resources available to help you get through this. And it definitely gives a little bit of hope and a brighter future.
Justin, we have one final question. We ask this same final question at the end of every show, every week, to every person. And I would like to ask it to you.
Sure.
What is the mission that you are on in your life at this very moment?
This moment, I want to see this place successful, because I would really like to be able to hand it off, hopefully to my son, but in knowing that this place will stay open to the community in the future. That's really what my goal is right now, is to make this a place that I can pass along and still have as a successful business.
And what does success look like to you?
Being able to pay my bills, live comfortably, really, with my wife, and be able to spend time with my grandchildren when they eventually come. Hopefully not too soon.
Well, if there's one thing I know, it's that good things to happen to good people who are doing the right things and putting good energy out into the universe. And you are certainly doing that here at Just in Time.
Thank you.
Justin, thank you so much for being here, for your honesty, for your openness, and for doing everything that you've done for Lewiston community and beyond. It's an unimaginable thing that you've had to go through, but you have passed the test with flying colors, at least from the outside perspective. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
That's Justin Juray, the co-owner of Just in Time Recreation in Lewiston, Maine. For more information on open lanes, booking birthday parties, and corporate events, just visit their website, the link to which is in today's show notes. Additionally, if you'd like to donate to Lewiston's ongoing recovery efforts, please visit MaineResiliencyCenter.org, link in show notes, who I'd also like to thank for helping to arrange today's interview. Now, before I go, I want to end today's show with something a little bit different. As you've probably gathered by now, I read from a script when I talk to you at the beginning and end of these episodes. I do this because I think it creates a better product, but also to protect myself because I'm a chronic oversharer and have been guilty of sharing far too much in the past that it makes me look bad. But for the end of this episode, I want to go off script so I can give you my real reaction to this interview with Justin. So here it goes. I want to tell you about the months-long process that was making this interview happen. So I've got a long list of people I want to talk to, topics I want to cover, and I'm trying to do some timely things as well, given where we are in the calendar year. I'll do some holiday stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So I had known that the Lewiston shooting happened in October, so I identified that months ago as something I would like to cover in some way on Seacoast Stories. Now, I knew that there were right ways to cover this and there were wrong ways to cover this. And I never covered something like this before, and I did not know the best way to approach it. So I sought some help. I went to the Google machine, discovered the Maine Resiliency Center, which was set up in the wake of this tragedy to offer resources to those who needed them. And I got in touch with them and just told them about my plans, that I wanted to talk about the 1-year anniversary in some way, and that I just needed some help with doing it responsibly because I didn't want to bring up negative feelings. I didn't want to hurt people in any way more so than they're already hurting. So I went back and forth with Danielle from the Maine Resiliency Center for a while. A lot of people, whether they were directly involved in the shooting, were eyewitnesses in the shooting, or survivors of family members that were lost, or law enforcement. A lot of people have been getting inundated with media requests and they just didn't want to talk. Again, understandably so. I mean, this is incredibly difficult subject matter we're dealing with. But finally, after months of going back and forth, the Resiliency Center told me that Justin would be willing to talk. And so I got in touch with Justin. He was down for it. And for every interview I do a pre-interview or a phone call or an in-person meeting just to give the lay of the land to my guests so that they know on recording day what the expectations are and what exactly it's going to look and feel like. And also just for me to introduce myself and to get some background information on the guest so that it can better inform the conversation that we're going to have. And so when I was talking to Justin as we were signing off our call, he told me, yeah, just send me the episode when you're done. When he said that, I didn't know if he meant, do you want it before I publish the episode so you can have a final say just to make sure it's all good? Or do you just mean after the episode just to share it? And he said, no, just after the episode. The Resiliency Center wouldn't send you to me if they didn't trust you and if you weren't vetted. So I trust you to do this right. And when I got off the call, that really hit me because Seacoast Stories, I started this in June for a litany of reasons. And it's just been kind of a fun hobby side project for me to really embed myself in the community, to meet people, to network, to learn more about all the amazing stuff that's going on in New Hampshire and Maine with all these incredible, ambitious, inspiring people. But it's just been that. It's just been a fun side hobby. But when Justin said that, it felt like, holy heck, I have a huge responsibility here. This is a story with that is so charged, that has so many emotions, that has impacted so many people, that is a microcosm of much larger issues going on in society. This is something that is not just confined to the seacoast. This is a massive story with massive implications, and I now have a responsibility to do this right and to prove everyone right that I was capable of having this kind of conversation, which they don't prepare you for in school. I was just going off my own instinct and the experience that I have had. But I got to admit, it was difficult to keep it together. When Justin said that he felt responsible for what happened that night, I started tearing up. And maybe that's unprofessional of me, because you're just supposed to, as a journalist, keep your emotions out of it and keep a straight face and be kind of stoic in that way. But I couldn't keep it together in that moment. And also when he was talking about going back into the alley for the first time, and also at the very end, which you just heard, which I think this was the most impactful part of the conversation, at least for me, when he talked about not feeling any anger or hatred toward the shooter. Everyone in Lewiston, on the seacoast in this country, has the right to feel those things toward this guy, toward this senseless act of violence. But the fact that Justin took the high road toward someone who upended his community, upended his business, an event that led to the deaths of innocent people, people that Justin knew and was close with and had built bonds with over years of going to this alley. The fact that Justin showed compassion and didn't blame him. If he's not going to blame him for what happened, what kind of message does that send to us in our everyday lives about how we react to certain situations? If he can show that kind of empathy, what's stopping us from being able to do that with much smaller, insignificant situations that are not matters of life and death? I found that to be really powerful and a testament to what Justin represents as a human being. And I'm going to post that clip on social media tomorrow, Tuesday. I would love for all of you to share that far and wide, because that message of forgiveness, of love, of compassion is something that we need, not only on the seacoast, but in this country, in this world, to hear. We are all people cut from the same cloth with one heartbeat. We all come from different places, look different, talk different, believe different things. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings, all in this together, just trying to figure it out for a short while we're on this earth. And I think what Justin said is a good reminder to everyone in this divisive time that we live in over heated issues like the ones that the Lewiston mass casualty event represents. So I'm going to post that on the Seacoast Stories podcast Instagram account. And if you could share it when I post it, share it far and wide, that would be amazing. Thank you in advance for doing that, for being here. I'm back to my script, as you can tell, and for trusting me to tell important stories like this one. I don't take that responsibility lightly, and I am very grateful for the opportunity. I'm off to Los Angeles for a work trip. If you've got any coffee shop recommendations for LA, slide into my DMs at Seacoast Stories Podcast and send them my way. I'll be back next week with another episode, but until then, have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you soon, and remember that love always wins.